back. The chair now recognizes Ms. Lilly for 5 minutes.
I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to come here and speak today. It truly is an honor to be able to be here. In my written testimony, I highlighted my personal story with you all. I didn't do that lightly. It's hard to relive the time that I experienced homelessness with my 6 children. I did it because I think you really needed to understand the vulnerability that exists prior to meeting the definition of HUD homelessness. I highlighted for you what my family and what I went through months leading up to homelessness, weeks leading up to homelessness, and the day that I finally hit the threshold for the HUD definition of homelessness. What I can tell you is that had any of the other avenues that I pursued for my family for housing prior to entering shelter come through, I would not be sitting here today. I would not be working in the homeless industry. I would not be successful. And I can tell you that because while Mr. Berg is well informed on policy, he's not on the ground level. He's not seeing what these families are living in. I reached out to situations that I knew were dangerous for my family, looking for 4 walls to keep us out of a shelter. I reached out to a biological family member who had a registered sex offender living in their home, begging for a floor to sleep on. Had they told me yes, I would have been there in a heartbeat, because I believed, and I know that there are families in all of our communities that believe dealing with the dangers we know is safer than dealing with the dangers that are unknown in the shelter system. In my work now, providing care to families and children who are experiencing homelessness, I'm out in the community. I'm an active member of our COC, and because I have 6 children, I'm active in a number of school systems. I see the vulnerability in our community. I know that we have families who are living in situations that are dire. Just 3 weeks ago, I was in a motel room with a family of 5 who had been living there for 4 months. I sat down on the bed, and it was wet. It's what the motel had for them. There were lice, there were cockroaches, there were bugs. The 3-year-old showed me her little bed on the floor. She had what she called a nest. There were blankets, there was a pillow, and there were bugs. It was a horrendous situation. While we were sitting there and we were talking, there was a banging on the door. It was a neighbor in the motel room. He was upset that last night the baby had been crying and was going to go talk to management to see if they could be put out of the motel, although they had paid for this week. These are not situations children should be living in. These are not safe situations. And contrary to what Mr. Berg tells you, this family is not eligible for COC services. If we do a VI SPDAT or a vulnerability index on this family, they're going to be told you have 1 recourse. We may offer you 1 service. We can rapidly rehouse you or assist you with prevention. This family is not suitable. Their vulnerability does not meet a successful outcome for us to put them in a place that they can't afford and say, we're going to provide you with limited assistance, limited services, and we're not going to address the vulnerability that brought you here. We're setting them up to fail. This is happening nationally. Family promises across the nation in 43 states can give you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories where this is true. The biggest pushback to the bill is that it's going to overwhelm this system, or that it's a funding issue. This isn't a funding issue. This is an issue that, while we're saying continuum of cares are prioritizing the most dire situations, they are excluding some of the most vulnerable and dire situations. We're not asking to bump chronic homeless people down on the list. We're not asking to bump people without shelter down on the list. We're asking you to include individuals who are truly being victimized because of their situations in the list. We're asking you to prioritize them the same way you prioritize the people who don't have shelter at this time. Honestly, my vulnerability was lower when I was in shelter than it would have been had I been doubled up or in a motel. And we're just asking that you consider that as you move forward with this. Our PIT counts are inaccurate. Because they're inaccurate and because we're continuing to leave families invisible, we don't know the trends that are going on in family and youth homelessness. We can't say that family homelessness is going down just by sticking our head in the sand and not counting individuals that are truly vulnerable and homeless. I thank you for this time, and I'm open to questions at the end of this.